Welcome to the Dose of Good podcast, where we celebrate good people and organizations working to make the world a better place. It can be easy to get caught up in the bad things going on in the world and forget about the good happening all around us each and every day. I'm your host, Erin, and I want to share these stories with you and give them the attention they deserve. I hope this podcast educates and inspires you and maybe even motivates you to share a dose of good in your community. Now let's get into today's episode. Today's episode features CASA, which stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. CASA New Hampshire was recommended to me by Terry on the Home Starter Program episode, and I had heard about them in the past through different avenues, and I was very excited to speak about them on today's episode. I speak to Margaret Byrnes, who is a case advocate and peer mentor for CASA NH. I think we'll just get right into the episode and let you learn more about them from Margaret. Today I'm here with Margaret Byrnes, case advocate and peer mentor for CASA New Hampshire. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. What is CASA New Hampshire and what is the mission?
CASA New Hampshire's mission is to provide a voice for abused and neglected children, essentially by creating a network of volunteer advocates who provide that voice for those children in cases involving abuse and neglect. And so CASA is, a nonprofit organization. They have an incredible staff of people, and their main focus is recruiting individuals to serve as volunteer CASAs, as well as supporting them, training them, and providing the tools that they need in order to do that job and to serve in this capacity throughout the state.
And how did you become involved with CASA New Hampshire? And can you tell us both about being an advocate and a peer mentor?
It's a great question. I always think back to 2019. I was attending a program through the New Hampshire Bar Association where local leaders and business leaders were speaking, and one of the speakers was Marty Sink, the current CEO of CASA, who is retiring this year after many, many years, and of course, after many years of also founding the organization back in the 80s. But I heard her speak, and that is my first clear memory of learning about the organization. And it was only a short 10, 15, maybe 20-minute presentation. And I had this realization that, maybe I could do that. She was speaking about, what the role was, what volunteers do, that it's volunteer-based, that you don't necessarily need any specific background in cases like this. And I just put it in the back of my mind. I think that's something I could do, and I think that's something I want to do. And so 2 years later, I had applied, and I was accepted, and I went through their intense but wonderful 40-hour-ish training program in 2021. And then I had my first case only a few months after that. And so I obviously started as a CASA, which is a court-appointed special advocate, which people might think of as a GAL as well. That term is synonymous with it. And so I've had probably 3 cases as a CASA, which means that you are advocating for a child who is in circumstances either involving abuse or neglect, and you are working your way through the court case essentially as the voice of the child, advocating for their best interests, and with the goal of hopefully getting to a point where the kiddo is permanently reunified with their parents, or family, or another permanent, safe, suitable family or home is found for them at the end of the case, if that is sort of the more appropriate route, depending on the circumstances. So that's sort of in a nutshell what you're doing as a CASA. And you understand that a case sort of has a life of 1 year, but that's not really true. In many cases, these can go on for several years beyond that, while you're working towards hopefully a resolution that is reunification. And again, if not reunification, another permanent home for the kiddo involved. The peer mentor side, I was very honored to be asked to be a peer mentor maybe a couple years ago. So after having, a few years of experience, and that's really helping a new CASA sort of get on their way on their first case and being a support or a sounding board, working through reports with them, answering some of those questions that come up when you go on your first visit, just being there really to support them.
Sure, that makes sense. Well, I'm glad you kind of touched on the experience of going through training, because that's one thing I was going to ask about is when you hear about something like this, you might think, oh, I'm not qualified for that. I have no legal experience, that kind of thing. So what experience would you say volunteers do need to have, if any?
In a sense, no experience, because there's no sort of uniform background that's required. You don't have to have a graduate degree or an undergraduate degree. You don't have to have legal experience or experience with social services. It can be really any type of person who can become an incredible advocate and become a CASA volunteer. But from a commitment standpoint, what you're looking for is, can you commit to the training sort of to get onboarded and to become a CASA? And it's about 40 hours and it's intense. It's a lot of information. It's a lot to learn. And then can you commit to taking on a case and being there for that kid and that case, sort of regardless of the length and the circumstances of it, because you get assigned a case and then you go with it. Then you're the person who's been appointed to represent that kid, and you want to your best ability, you want to be able to commit to taking on that work, the time as well as the emotional impact it can have of being involved in some of the matters that CASA volunteers have to be involved in.
Sure.
So it's really about the commitment and wanting to help and believing in the mission of the organization. I would say those are really the qualifications, and the more diverse the volunteers are, probably the better, because they all bring different backgrounds and knowledge to each case that they work on.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah. How has being an advocate impacted your life?
More than I expected. I think when I started, I thought I really wanted to get involved with volunteering, and I didn't know what I wanted that to look like. I was sort of at that point where I thought, why am I not volunteering? And then it was, well, what can I do, or what's sort of the right thing for me? And so when I got involved, it felt like I can be a good advocate. I have legal background, I have advocacy experience, I have experience working in the courts. I think I can do this and I can make a difference. What I didn't expect is sort of the way in which it would, I'm going to try not to cry, the way in which it would sort of open my heart.
Yeah.
And open me up to having more perspective about what people go through.
Sure.
And just sort of challenging my own assumptions and biases about different people that I probably did not know that I had.
Sure.
And so that's the reward to me, is that it really opened up my heart, my perspective, and my world in that way.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I think that's a good thing for people to hear, because I think we often aren't aware of even what our own biases are until we experience something or interact with people or those sorts of things to even realize that's there, kind of thing.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
And just some questions I didn't have right down, but have come to mind as we're talking. So I did see that some people even take on more than one case. So that's something that's possible as well if they have the time and effort to dedicate to it.
Yes.
And the other thing that I'm just curious about here listening to you, and it sounds like you've kind of already given people that feedback, but for someone who may be maybe doubting themselves, like, would I be able to emotionally handle doing that sort of work? I guess, what would you tell them about that?
It's a great question. And I think if you are someone who hears this or reads about the mission or has learned a little bit about CASA and you think, oh, I kind of want to do that, but I'm not sure if I have whatever it is, fill in the blank. I'm not sure if I have whatever that thing is.
Sure.
I would start with an informational session, and you can always apply and learn more about it. You can even, get accepted and go through the training. And I think that the training will probably give you a good sense of whether this is the right thing for you. And they're so clear in the training that at the beginning they tell you this may not be right for you.
Sure.
And some folks will probably not finish the training. They may decide at some point this isn't really right for them. And they encourage you to be extremely honest with yourself so that people who really feel like this is the right fit for them can do this. And if it's not, that's great too. And it's just not the right place for you for whatever reason. And so that's what I would encourage is I think the training will give you a lot, and the informational sessions can give you a lot as well to get a better sense of that. But, can you handle it sort of emotionally, sort of as a generic question? I think the answer is probably yes, because for all of the sort of heartache you'll experience, you will experience the opposite of it as well. You will feel that you contributed. You will see positive things happen, and that will make it worth it. So it might be a little bit of a roller coaster at times, but it will probably be worth it.
Well, I was thinking that with any volunteer opportunity, it gives so much back to you, and the feeling of just helping others, helping to make the world a better place. But at the same time, it can be not only eye-opening, but challenging because of the circumstances that people are in. And I think it can just give you a greater appreciation of not taking little things for granted, because to some people, those little things are huge.
100%.
Yeah.
And CASA has support groups. You will have a staff person sort of assigned to you who's your person at CASA to talk to and who will help you through the case. And they have a lot of other resources. So when you're feeling like you need a boost, they're there for you.
I'm glad that got mentioned, because I was wondering about that. So even though they go through the training, it's not like, okay, you're all set. See ya. You're on your own. They've got support and people there that they can reach out to.
They do.
Then.
Everyone has their own person, is the way I like to think of it, has someone at CASA who's assigned to them.
Oh, nice.
Or that you're assigned to, I guess is the better way to say it. So, no, I mean, their whole mission is to recruit, train, and support the volunteers. So you are absolutely not alone for your whole journey as an advocate.
That's great. And they're always actively looking for new volunteers, correct?
Always.
Yeah. Okay.
Even with over 600 volunteers in their network, they still at times have to turn away cases, or they don't have someone to fill a particular case. So there is always a need for more people to get involved.
Okay, good to know. And are there any events or fundraisers that they have throughout the year that people should know about?
Absolutely. I know they have an annual CASA Cares event. There's an annual event that I believe is called CASA on Tap. That is also
I think
a
I did
fundraising
see that on the
event.
website,
Yes.
yeah.
And other events here and there as well that I often read about. And of course, you can donate monthly or make one-time donations. There's a legacy fund that you can donate to. Just a number of different ways that you can donate, big or small.
Okay, and I'm guessing the website is the best place to go for the latest information on like what might be coming up or that kind of thing.
Absolutely. They have an events tab on the website. They have a tab about how to give and donate. So the website is the best place to go.
Great. Okay,
Yeah.
and we'll make sure to link that for everybody too. Is there anything else you'd like people to know about CASA New Hampshire?
I think it's their entire structure and mission is really impressive. The way that they're focused on creating a network of volunteers and sort of empowering and training them to then go out into the state and do the work. It's a really cool way of doing things. It's a really empowering way of doing things. And people should just be aware of the work of the organization. I think whether they get involved as a volunteer, whether they donate, or whether they just have general awareness of the work that CASA does for the state.
Yeah, I think that's really important because I think people hear the name but maybe don't necessarily know exactly what it is or what they do. And I think it's also an area probably people don't think about too much. Like, people have attorneys and that, but just the fact of how important it is for that child to have somebody representing them.
Exactly. And that really is what it's about, having the child have a voice throughout the entire process, including at every court hearing and in every court report that's filed. And I think, too, folks might not have awareness that, this is an important part of these cases, and it's volunteer-based. So you're right. People might think, well, doesn't the state just assign an attorney or an advocate or whatever it is? Doesn't the state, sort of the court system, take care of that? And there's this whole network of people who are actually volunteering to be part of that. It's just good information to have.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And then I just have 3 final questions that I like to ask everybody. So the first is, could you share a story of someone whose life has been transformed by your work with CASA?
Well, that's a great question. I like to think that the families have been hopefully transformed in small or big ways through my work, or through not just my work, through the work of all the volunteers. Certainly, I've had, looking back, I've had 3 cases that led to reunification. So that means kiddo going home and that being the permanent home. And I hope that was something that, transformed their life, because it could have gone a different way, certainly under those circumstances.
Oh, yeah. Well, it sounds like it would, because as you said earlier, that's the ultimate goal, is to have that reunification. So the fact that you came to that is, just a huge accomplishment. So. And then just kind of to educate me on new organizations or people, but also to kind of just spread the love amongst all the nonprofits. Can you recommend either another nonprofit or just an incredible individual doing good things in their community that we could have on as a future guest?
Oh my goodness. Well, I also, it's hard for me to pinpoint just one, but I also volunteer at Darbster, which is an animal shelter. There's Darbster Kitty and Darbster Doggy. So I have to, of course, make a plug for Darbster. Their mission is like other organizations, their mission is bringing animals up from the southern states up to New Hampshire, and spay and neuter and finding permanent homes for those kitties and doggies.
Yeah,
so I have
that
to make
would be
a plug
great.
for
And
them.
I haven't heard. I've heard about animals being brought up here but I didn't know that was the name of the organization or anything. So yeah, I'll have to look into that. That would be great.
Cool.
Because we got to help those animals out. Yeah. And then the final question is, what does kindness mean to you? And then can you share an example that you've personally experienced or witnessed?
Oh, kindness is, I guess kindness means to me is doing something, giving something that gives you nothing in return. Sort of it's for someone else, and you're not thinking of yourself when you do it, which ironically can make you feel the best.
Exactly. Yes.
Better than when you do something for yourself in so many circumstances. And it's funny, an example of kindness. It's funny, you know, what comes to my mind is the first case that I worked on. She was, reunified with her family, and she had just actually turned 18 at the end of the case. And I remember, she was a teenager, so it was an interesting challenge to be her advocate right throughout the case. And I remember the last day after everything was closed, she sent me a text message and said, I appreciate everything you've done for me. And we had never sort of had a conversation like that throughout the course of the case, because of course she was under immense stress and difficult circumstances. Yeah. And that was something that stuck with me. Yeah. I thought that was an act of kindness. She did not have to communicate that, and it meant a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just those things of reaching out, people might think twice about it, like, oh, is this going to even make an impact just sending this? But it really can. Just those small acts of reaching out can really have a huge impact.
They really can. And I'm sure we can all think of little things that meant a strangely large amount to us that someone else did or said.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think, they talk about like acts of kindness, and I think the more of that can be done, whether it seems big or small, it just, again, like spreads the love. Like the small example of like paying for somebody else's coffee, then you want to pay for somebody, and it just spreads, so.
And it makes you smile.
Exactly.
Maybe it puts you in a good mood for the day, and maybe that rubs off. Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for being here and teaching us about CASA New Hampshire, and hopefully people will listen and consider and maybe go and sign up for the training and become a volunteer, because it's very important work that's being done. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this conversation.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode about CASA New Hampshire. Thank you again to Margaret for being my guest. It's an incredible organization advocating for children in the courts. It sounds like a very rewarding experience, so I hope that you will check it out. Think about getting involved and volunteering with them. It's a little bit hard to believe that this is the 50th episode. We've done 50 episodes of the Dose of Good podcast so far, and every single one is worthy, and I'm happy to have learned about and promoted. Let me know in the comments if you have a favorite episode that you've really enjoyed. I know it's hard. I don't think I could pick a favorite, but yeah, thank you for supporting the podcast for 50 episodes. Here's to the next 50 and promoting more incredible organizations and individuals. And a part of that is helping out by following on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, subscribing to the podcast where you listen to podcasts, leaving a rating and review, and I greatly appreciate it. And as always, be kind to others, share those acts of kindness, volunteer, get involved in your community. I will be back soon with another episode.